Good morning, Facebook. Okay, I just made sure that Batman was not playing. But good morning. Well, Happy New Year to those of you that I haven't talked to or seen in this year. It's January 6th, and today we will talk a little bit more about trauma. And I think I want to start off saying that my mom, when I wrote my book, I wrote about her. She was my everything. And she wrote it when she used to always say, I'm poor and proud, I'm black and free. And I never understood that as a kid. I didn't understand that because I was looking at where we lived, what we didn't have, how my dad was abusive, all the things that happened in our lives. And I'm looking at all those things saying, how do you feel like you're free and what do you have to be proud of? I have learned since doing this study and the research that what I think somebody else should feel has nothing to do with anything. It's all about me. I'm the only one that I can look at to see why do I feel this way? What's affecting me? Because my mom, although she had children who were abused, and we didn't have a lot. We had sometimes very little, nothing, I would say. And I remember my mom one day giving out, this lady came and she needed some flour. And Mama used to keep it in this tin bucket out. And she told us to make noise so that the lady wouldn't hear her hitting the bottom of the bucket for her to give, for my mom to give that lady the last of the flour that we had. And she always felt that she was okay. She always said that, oh, baby, God got us and God's going to make a way. He's already made a way. He is the way. So we're going to be okay. And she really said that all the time. And I didn't get it a lot. Also, when my mom was a mentor to different people, I can tell you that Congressman Danny Davis used to come to our house to visit and talk to my mom. Obacker, I don't remember his first name. Helen Schiller, at the time she was the 46th Ward Alderman. And these are people that used to come over and Mama would talk. And my mama was a mentor to so many people. And my mom fed the homeless. And as I said, she had people come to our house and stay when people needed a place to live. And it blossomed from us having nothing. Even when we had nothing, she gave to other people. But from us having nothing until she was able to bless so many people and able to give to so many people. Excuse me, my husband. To give to so many people. And the more she gave, the more she had to give. And I think that's one of the reasons I try and keep my hands open. Because if we keep our hands closed, nothing gets out, but nothing gets in either. Anyway, I don't know, she was on my mind. I want to bring that up this morning. So we're continuing to talk about trauma. I said last week that we were going to talk about some ways to manage trauma, but when I post these videos and I talk to people during the week who have listened to the video, it helps me to decide which way we should be going. And we're not at a place in this discussion, in this journey, to talk about fixing things because we still don't have the total understanding. And I maybe because I'm not presented in a way that that you need, but if not, let me know. Anyway, as I said, that trauma is an emotional response to any event or situation that leaves you feeling overwhelmed and isolated, even if it does not involve physical harm. It's a normal thing. Now, the biggest thing on this one is that leaves you feeling overwhelmed and isolated. It can be we have incidents in our lives all the time. Things are happening in our lives all the time. But how does it leave you feeling? And before we start to look at the incidents that happen in today, we need to go back and say, when we look at those incidents and it happens multiple times, why does this keep coming up? Then that's when we may think about it could be trauma. And please know that when we're talking about this, it's only to raise awareness. And then you can go back and look and do your own research or talk to your therapist if you have one, and to find out, is this activated by trauma? Are these feelings activated by trauma? Is this reaction that I have activated by trauma? we talked a little bit about the trauma wheel, and it talked about some of the things that trauma would lead us to do. It can cause us to try to avoid things, things that represent or remind us of that event. We avoid them. Now, when we talk about the avoidance, it's not that always that it's the same exact thing, but it can be something similar. Anything in the new situation that brings back a trigger of the old situation, and then we can walk into where we are trying to avoid this thing. When I told you that one time that I didn't like kissing because I remember one time I smelled my dad's breath. And and so when I would meet guys and they would try and kiss me, and it wasn't bad that they tried to kiss me, but when they tried to be persistent with kissing me, it was more than just because I didn't smell my father's breath on them. It was just that it brought back that trigger. That was that trigger, and that's how trauma is activated by triggers. Excuse me. So the trauma of smelling my dad's breath while he was abusing me, and somebody else trying to get me to kiss them and their breath in my face and smelling nothing like my dad, that was the trigger that came back on me. So we also know, hello, thank you for joining, hyperarousal. That's another one when it occurs when a person's body, when it kicks into the high alert. How you kick into high alert. And one of the things that I like to say about this one is sometimes when we have gone through something, and when people, when we've gone through something in perhaps relationships or whatever, because trauma can be in anything that overwhelms us and leave us feeling like we're isolated. So when this happens, we have a relationship, and we do things, and we feel that we're giving all in our relationship, and we feel that this other person is not giving their all, or this person has hurt me in some type of way. So when we meet that new person in our life, and we see some of the same things that happen in the old person, it kicks into this hyper arousal state where we get on alert already. And sometimes when we get on that alert, we put up blocks in our lives where we don't let that new person even come through to show you what they're trying to do or show you what they mean, because we're dealing with trauma. We see that as a trauma trigger. It can disturb our sleep. When I was a kid, and Dad came in, well, he came into my room, but he came into my room and would take me into his room. And so when I was younger, and for a long, long time, anytime any little noise would wake me up. And not only that, and it could have been that I'm a light sleeper, but more than that, any little noise that would wake me up, and I would go to sleep. And I could actually see in my sleep these things happening again. I would have these, when we talked about recurring dreams, it wasn't actually a dream of him abusing me, but it was like I would go to sleep and I wasn't totally asleep. I could see everything happening around me. I could even wake up and tell you what happened around me. I could tell you what was said, but I was in this state in my sleep where I couldn't move, where I couldn't do anything, and where I had that same helpless feeling that I had when I was abused. It affects our memory. It affects our concentration. So when we're trying to concentrate on something and trying to stay focused on something, even in our everyday life, when we find that I keep trying this and I keep trying to eat better. That's one, okay? I'm trying to eat better. But every time I try to eat better, I find myself being overwhelmed because of, that's where we need to go. Why? Because why? What happened in my life that caused me to be overwhelmed in these situations? What happened in my life that caused me to feel this way and to cause me to be this way? And intrusive thoughts. We can have those thoughts that come up for no reason. Flashbacks. A threatening thought that come up in our life. We get bitten by a puppy when we were a dog when we were little, and then as we see dogs now, we go to start thinking that this dog may bite me, and I have lived out entire scenarios in my head before it even happened, and it didn't happen. I remember when I used to live on the north side, and I would go to work. I had to walk to the train station. And I don't know why, I can't even tell you this one, why it was like this. But if I saw somebody walking my way, in my mind, I would say to myself, and yeah, when they get here, they're going to say this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say that, and then they're going to say this. I would have an entire conversation in my head about what's going to happen before those people got to me. And most of the time, they passed me by. They didn't even say good morning. So those things and when it happens, things going to happen, as I said before. But when they happen more than one time, and when you find that they're associated with being overwhelmed, when you find that it's also causing you to feel isolated, then we can look at trauma. We don't want to take things in our life that require just us setting boundaries and saying, well, this is trauma. Not necessarily. That's why we say we look at it to determine if this is trauma. Okay. So, anger and being irritable. You can get angry, but if I'm angry in conjunction with mood swings, I just get angry and I look at, I always seem to have these mood swings when I go to Rose's house. I always seem to get irritated. I always seem to have this anger feeling when I go to Rose's house. What happened in my past that caused me to feel this way? And could it be something that's associated with Rosie? Could it be something that Rosie did or said that I never dealt with? I never set boundaries. I let her do it, and then she did it again, and it bothered me, and I never set any boundaries. So we got so many things working in our lives until we don't want to attribute anything to trauma that's not trauma, but we also don't want to dismiss anything in our life that could be trauma. Okay. Anything, we don't want to dismiss anything. So, as with anything else in life, the first step to dealing with any form of illness, any form of disorder, any form of anything is recognizing the symptoms. When we go to the doctor, and we tell him that I'm not feeling this way or something is happening, they ask us a lot of questions. The reason they ask us a lot of questions because they need to understand the symptoms. They need to understand what's happening with us. They need to see the signs before they can recommend any type of treatment. So the reason I'm saying is because we just talked last week about hi Cora, we just talked a little bit last week about how to recognize when there could be trauma in our lives. So, but we don't want to go and hear this and then start doing things because we can mess ourselves up. As I said before, I said that if my mom had a leak under the kitchen sink and she had a hammer and she tried to fix that leak with the hammer, she could break the water pipe. If I go in, because I'm going to do things different. I'm not going to do things like my mom. I don't like the way she did things. And I go in and I decide that I'm going to fix that same kitchen sink. And I have only a hammer, I could do more damage. Because once I get under there, now I don't think the water is actually coming from the pipe that I see. I think the water is coming from the pipe on the other side, inside the wall. So I could damage the wall, I could damage the floor, I could damage the pipe. I can do way more damage than my mom did with that hammer because I'm trying to do things differently. So we have to be mindful. First of all, we want to understand and recognize the sign. Is this trauma? Is this just something I need to deal with? Is this just a boundary I need to set? Everything is not the devil is a lie. Sometimes he's not lying. So the devil is not a lie when I take my finances and go buy things that I know I can't afford when my light bill is due. That's not the devil being a lie. That means that I need to make some changes in my life. So trauma is activated by triggers. It causes a feeling of being isolated. It can cause reckless behavior, disturb our sleep. And when we have these emotions that seem extreme, unpredictable, why did I get so upset over something that was really a little thing? These are all potential signs, indicators rather, of trauma. Why does it bother me so much when people lie? So I thought about that more, and I'm not sure if I'm done with it. But one of the things I believe that when I did a lot of things that was not right, stole, dated guys when I wasn't married to them, a lot of different things. And I was a Christian. I'm a Christian. So because I had these two things going in my life where I know I should have been doing right, but I found myself doing wrong, I would tell the truth. And maybe that's what I do now. I tell the truth because I felt like I said, one thing I'm not going to be is phony. Been a lot of other things in life. I've done a lot of other things in life. I'm not going to be phony, and I'm not a liar. That's one thing you would not catch me doing. I may tell you the truth that I think make myself look stupid, but you would not catch me lying. So when I met other people that was lying and I could see it was just an outright lie, that was a trigger, that was a trauma trigger in me. Because I had these things in my life that I needed to deal with that overwhelmed me. Things in my life that bothered me to the point that I wasn't going to do them, and I didn't want anybody around me that did them. I was like in this little box. If they did this, oh my God, I didn't want this around me. Instead of dealing with what was in me. That's another thing we're going to say a little bit later. There we call them the 3 T's of understanding trauma. So the 3 T's of understanding trauma. The first one is event. Traumatic events such as, natural disasters, violence, a threat to you, life-threatening neglect. It can be also just neglect. Anything that impedes the health or development. So it can be an event. It can also be an experience. But because everyone is unique and reacts differently to circumstances, your experience can be different from mine. So you have to take your own experience to help you determine if this event is traumatic in your life. I can say that almost always, traumatic events involve a power dynamic where the person that's experiencing the trauma feels powerless to finds themselves questioning why it happened to them. So anytime, most of the time, almost always, traumatic events will involve a power dynamic where the person experiencing the trauma feels powerless, or they find themselves questioning why it happened to them, or what they should have done to prevent it. I think I said this before when I talked about when I started going to therapy, and my therapist helped me to realize that at the time I hated myself. Because I was questioning myself, but I was questioning the little girl in Rosie, not dealing with it as, that part of me, because as an adult, I didn't think I had that problem, but it was never dealt with. So that's why. So that person find themselves feeling powerless, or find themselves questioning why it happened to me. One way that you will know, that we can know, that what we're dealing with is trauma, actual trauma. We go from saying, why did they do this, or why are they doing this, to what happened to me to cause me to feel this way. The trauma is about, what we're talking about is how to get ourselves better. We can't change other people. So the three E's of understanding trauma are events, experience, and the effect. Trauma changes people in so many ways. And the effect of trauma may happen immediately, or it can be months or even years later. Do you know, like I said, Dad died in 1985, I think. 1985. I started going to therapy in 1992. But I was raped when I was 11 years old, so that was in 1964. Yeah. When in 1964, I was 11 years old. 67. I was 11 years old. So I was raped at that age, but it was in 1992 when I started going to therapists and realized how trauma had changed my life and how trauma was affecting my life. So, it's the effect. Trauma changes people in many, many ways. Many, many ways. And the effect of trauma can happen immediately, it can happen months after, and it can happen years after. And that's why sometimes it's kind of hard for people to understand, is this a traumatic event? It is dealing with trauma because it happened so long ago. Why is it still affecting me? A few possible effects of trauma can include the inability to cope with the stress of daily living. We find ourselves with just daily living, the stress of it gets to be too much too easily. Why is the stress of daily living getting to be too much? Sometimes when I'm on on different places. I talk to so many people. I'm on prayer lines. And sometimes I hear people and the things we say, and it's like it sounds like our life is like totally messed up. Like nothing is right. Everybody hate us, and we going through, and then they try to say everybody going through, and I say not me. I don't know what's happening in everybody's life. And not everybody, God forgive me. I don't know what's happening in your life to make you feel like everything is just turned upside down. But some of that stuff, we need to find out what it is, and we need to try and deal with it. Because life is not bad. It is good. Life is good. And we don't even have to get to that point where every time somebody says, how you doing? Well, I'm blessed and highly favored. You can say you don't feel well. It's okay. It's okay if you don't feel well today. It's okay if you're having a bad day. We just need to understand what's happening in our lives so that we don't attribute everything to something when it's not there. Okay, another thing that fact can do is have us with difficulty trusting and benefiting from with relationships. It can get us to a point where we're not able to trust. And I guess you can say, and it can already know that affected me. Trouble with cognitive processes in like memory, attention, and thinking. It can affect us in so many ways, and difficult to regulating behaviors or our emotions. So I want to, that's what trauma is going to look like when we talk about it. I want to go back to something else that I have on my laptop. I think I left it up to talk about. Okay. I think I left it up, but I wanted to tell you one more thing that I found. So what we want to do when we're talking, we want to be informed. We want to be trauma informed. Because trauma informed, when we understand the trauma, it shifts our focus from what's wrong with me to what happened to me. So that's a big and an issue, a big thing to think about. It shifts us from thinking, man, what's wrong with me? This always happening to me. When somebody say, I used to say I must have a mark on my forehead to make people just feel like they can say and do anything to me. No, not what's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. But what happened to me to make me feel that way? What happened to me in my life that I have these emotions and things that's still in my life that's affecting me this way? So another way that I explain being trauma informed. Sometime in our triggers, when we have these trauma triggers in our lives, and I use this for an example, if you have two different people in your friends, two friends, and they both very, one day you walk in and they're both using profanity and your name is involved in the conversation, and you hear your name being called, rather, not in the conversation, you hear your name being called, and they're both using profanity. And you go in, and you ready to whatever you're ready to do because you're upset about it. But if you realize that one of your friends has Tourette's, then you feel differently about it. So you don't want to kill her because you understand that that's just she uses profanity all the time. So that kind of I hope that makes sense. But we want to be informed. So shift it from what's wrong with me to what happened to me. And take it away from everybody else. Don't give everybody else. They don't have that power. Don't give it to everybody else. We were always looking at what people do and why people do this and people do that. No, we don't want to do that. We want to go from that because it's not about what people do. It's about what I'm going to do. Other people don't have power over your life. We have the power over our own life. We get to decide what we're going to have in our life. We get to decide. And when I look at my life, and I hope that when you think about this, because we all going to hopefully next week talk about what some of the things that I do when the triggers came in my life. As I said, being abused as a kid, seeing my parents and seeing my parents' relationship affected me, having a relationship. It seemed like it was good to everybody outside. I didn't see that. My brother had a brother who was right under me, younger than me, and he was my hero. He always took care of me. He would do things with me to make sure I was okay. So he was my protector. So I did have a protector. I also had an older brother who would teach me things like how to spell, how to write poems, he would do all of that. So it was a lot of good in my life, but I didn't see the good because I was focused, and so the bad was overtaking me. It was overwhelming me to a point that I couldn't see good. I loved my job. I've had multiple multiple jobs. I love my job. I love working. I love people. I love people. I can do, there's barely anything I can do. I'm really good with cleaning up messes. You throw me in a room full of mess, and I can straighten it out for you, because that's what I do. That's the mentality that I have. That's what I do, and that's what my mom did. That's why my mom could say she was poor and proud and she was black and free, because my mama was able to go into a mess and come out with gems. And I see that not only in my mom, hi Ollie, in our family. We go, you can put a Simmons, find somebody in our family and throw them into a mess, and they would come out with diamonds. It's just that who we are. And I believe that you can too. I don't think that we're the only ones that can do that. I think that other people can too. We just have to do it. And like I said, Mama said all the time, she was poor and proud, black and free. So, and she was able to be free over all the stuff that I saw happening. What Dad was doing to her did not bind her. Not in the way that matters most to her. Nothing bound her. She would like, cause a lot of things that she did that we may not have liked. A lot of things. Hey, Patty, dude, thanks for joining. There was a lot of things that she did that we didn't agree with, and we wanted to do things differently. But Mama was a very, very strong woman. Very strong, because sometimes trauma in our life will hinder us from what we become self-sabotaging to our own life. We got these things in our lives and goals and stuff, and the trauma in our life that don't allow us to move forward will cause us to self-sabotage our own lives. And until we can say what happened to me to cause me to do this, we'll blame other people. We'll start saying, well, if they would just do this, then I could do that. So many people right now, I feel that the young man was saying, man, if she would just work with me, we could do this. See? But you can't make anybody work with you if they don't want to work with you. That has to be their own decision as well. And other people dealing with trauma in their lives. It's not our place to find it. It's their place to find it, to see if that's trauma in their life. All we can do is bring the information and share what we have, and we can recommend and suggest that people go to counseling. If you go counseling is one of the best things that I do. One of the best things that I do is going to counseling. And I have changed counselors. We go and you find a counselor that's not helping you. Open your mouth and say, no, I'm not coming back to you. I need somebody else. I go to my doctor. I got a new doctor. I moved, and so I have a new doctor. And this doctor is a little bit too bouncy for me. Now, that may not be an issue for you, but he's a little too bouncy for me. I'm here because of my health. I'm here because I want to be better and I want to be well. And I don't want you bouncing around like that. I need you to sit down and talk to me. Answer my questions when I ask you a question. And that's why I'm changing my doctor. So when I went right to the front desk and I told him I needed a different doctor. Real simple. Real simple. There's nothing wrong with There's nothing wrong with getting our life to the place we want. And that's actually all I have for today. Next week, I hope that we talk about some of the ways. But think about it this week. This is the goal for this week. Look at everything, right? It's a good thing to write down things. That we write down things, we can see them. Sometimes we think we see them, but we don't. If you find yourself thinking that, oh my God, what happened to the hours? Write down what you did today. Write it down and go back and look at it. That's why it's a good thing. Journals are a good thing to have. When my therapist says, when I don't come to therapy, write down what I do. When I start to feel a certain way, write down what was happening when I felt that way, who was around when I felt this way, what was I doing when I felt that way. So it's a good form of therapy itself when you write it down and tracking and looking. So we're going to, next week, hopefully, we'll be able to go into some of the things that we do when we, how we manage trauma. So hopefully that's where we'll go. We'll see where it goes, depending on this week's conversations and the feedback that we get. So, but we're going to, right now, anytime you got questions, just let me know. But right now, we're going to do our trauma affirmations. And our trauma affirmations are, not just trauma, but our affirmations are, my life is divinely guided. I am capable of transforming any and every negative experience into something positive. If you give me lemons, I'm not just going to make lemonade. I'm going to corner the market. So we are capable of transforming every negative experience into something positive. Our needs and wants are just as important as anyone else's. I trust my instinct and I listen to my own inner wisdom. I am exactly where I need to be on my life journey. Exactly where. Not everything is the way I want it. I'm still working on things. But right this day, this second, this moment, I am exactly where I need to be on my journey. I'm making peace every day with my past, and I'm accepting myself. Every emotion that I have is legitimate. No one has to agree with it. I don't need your opinion or suggestions on it. Every emotion that we have is legitimate. I can let myself be happy. I can let myself be sad. And the blessings of the Lord are still good. I can be frustrated. I can be hurt. And no one can tell me that I don't have a right to those feelings because they are mine and I am accepting them. So I let myself be happy. I let myself be sad. I let myself be frustrated. And I let myself be hurt. And last but definitely not least, I am only responsible for the me in any relationship that I'm in. That's it for me today. Thank you, ladies, for joining so much. Appreciate you. You have a great, great, great day. And I hope to see you on Saturday at 8 a.m. Goodbye.